Welcome to the Beginner's Guide to all things economic, political, and sociocultural. Here we will be sharing quick bites into all the topics, concepts, and theories that we all talk about but should probably know a little bit more about. I'll be doing my best to keep it all unbiased, to the point, and hopefully interesting enough to inspire you to dig a little deeper on your own. With that being said, I'm your host, Emmy Davis, and this is a Beginner's Guide to Capitalistic Economic Theory. Capitalism. There's only a handful of words that can immediately polarize a political conversation in a way that the word capitalism can in most university classrooms or your local coffee shop.
And now into their third day of demonstrations against what they see as corporate greed.
Inequality, state intervention. All reasons for this anti-capitalist millions mask march.
So to Venezuela's not socialist. The workers control all means production. To the workers control means production. North Korea not socialist.
It hasn't always been this way, though. For quite some time, the economics of capitalism, while always highly debated, did not carry the same emotional baggage as it does today. The lesser-known irony of it all is that the term capitalism was actually coined to hold a derogatory connotation. The term was made famous by none other than its biggest critic, himself, Karl Marx. While the economic system he was referring to is not quite the one that we refer to today, the term capitalism managed to stick with both its critics and its supporters. The capitalism that Karl Marx referred to in his book Das Kapital was aimed to describe those who own the means of production. The capitalists employed everyone else in pursuit of profits for themselves. Today, capitalism holds a different meaning. Simply put, it's an economic system in which private individuals or businesses own capital goods.
Hey, why not? My own business. All you need is a little capital, a little push, and an idea.
And the production of those capital goods are determined by supply and demand of the market, aka society. There is one major component vital to any capitalist economic system working: private property rights. The existence and the enforcement of private property rights creates the incentives necessary for anyone to invest in the producing or the purchasing of capital goods. Side note, capital goods are goods that are used to produce other goods. Machinery, equipment, tools, these are all considered capital goods. Consumer goods are the finished product. The current lack of distinction between capital and consumer goods in regard to capitalism is, I think, a major contributor to the state of today's discussion around the topic. Any conversation will feel like an uphill battle if there is a misunderstanding about the very topic of conversation. While Mr. Marx can be credited for the proliferation of the term, he definitely cannot be credited for the proliferation of the economics behind it, something I'm sure he is forever grateful for. The origins of the economic system can be found in 12th century Europe. By the late Middle Ages, urbanism was on the rise, making cities a center for both industry and trade. This meant that the previous system of feudalism was no longer viable. Feudalism was where the royals would give land to the nobles in exchange for their military service. Those nobles would then give protection to the peasants who lived on the land in exchange for their labor and goods. With the shift away from rural living to city centers, a non-competitive form of trade became commonplace. As goods and services became homogenized throughout the 16th and 18th centuries, trade expanded further and further out, and the importance of society identity grew. Wealth was now largely generated by maximizing exports and keeping imports to a minimum, aka mercantilism, which is more of an economic policy than a system. Fast forward now to the father of economics, Adam Smith. Direct in the heart of the Industrial Revolution, the Scottish economist and philosopher noticed that the current state of mercantilism and colonialism was not a positive force for economic development, but rather a negative force that resulted in dramatic trade and economic imbalances. Smith released his book titled An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations in 1776, a title he maybe should have considered shortening. In it, he argues that private ownership and trade untouched by government policy would produce an economic system that would not only benefit the individual, but society as a whole. His concept of the invisible hand, in short, explains his belief that individuals, while yes profit-seeking, can improve society more effectively and efficiently than the government can. His concept of the invisible hand can essentially be equated to supply and demand, risk and reward, and even human nature. He felt that while everyone may aim to progress or profit for their own selfish reasons, society or the market will only allow it insofar as the rest of society somehow gains from their efforts as well. For example, Amazon. chances are that the executives aren't necessarily passionate about e-commerce, but instead about business or, for sake of this example, money. On one hand, we may not like some of what they do or why they do it. However, we as a society have grown to rely on their services. So we override our opinions and click free same-day shipping. The conceptual foundation laid out by Adam Smith has given many economists something to talk about. Today, there are multiple schools of thought around capitalism, as well as multiple formulations of it. A specific few worth highlighting are laissez-faire capitalism, stakeholder capitalism, and shareholder capitalism. Laissez-faire capitalism is essentially the system that Adam Smith was proposing. It is capitalism in its purest form. No government involvement in the marketplace. A free market where individuals choose where to invest, what to produce or sell, and at which price they wish to sell for. The tenets of laissez-faire capitalism can easily be seen today in the arguments used for a reduction of government's involvement in the economy. However, due to the size and scope of the market today, most people agree that some sort of governmental regulation is needed. Stakeholder versus shareholder capitalism is just what it sounds like. Stakeholder capitalism believes that it is in everyone's best interest to prioritize the stakeholder over the shareholder, while shareholder capitalism believes the exact opposite. Just for clarity's sake, the best example of a stakeholder is a business's customer, while the best example of a shareholder is a business's board member. Shareholder capitalism was made popular in the 1970s by the Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman. He famously argued against the notion that a business had any social responsibility other than, and I quote, to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profits so long as it stays within the rules of the game, which is to say, engages in open and free competition without deception or fraud. End of quote. Full disclosure, what I'm about to say is fully opinion-based and in reference to the United States. Agree or disagree, it's worth considering. The difference between shareholder and stakeholder capitalism gets to the core of what so many people are discussing, whether they know it or not. The conversations are wrongly framed as capitalism versus socialism, when stakeholder versus shareholder is what would get to the core of the discussion better. Before capitalism took hold in the 18th and 19th centuries, the only way rapid economic development was achieved was through extracting local resources from conquered peoples. Even with the benefits of the agricultural revolution, research shows that the average global per capita income was stagnant until the Industrial Revolution and the application of capitalist systems. Most political theorists and nearly all economists agree that capitalism is the most productive and efficient economic system we have. Study after study shows that capitalistic economic policies result in explosive economic growth compared to every other economic system. This is why I feel like the conversation should be less about capitalism versus a different system, as it is, as of now, the undisputed winner in terms of economics, and more about what kind of capitalism we want. Opinion time again. The rather lovely sentiment that seems to be driving the discussion is our desire as a society to define the role of social responsibility within the economic system. The phrase, business is business, does not seem to cut it the way it did for the likes of Milton Friedman. However, in order for an economy, a business, and even an individual to continue on and thrive, some self-interested decisions must be made. The question we must answer as a society is, to what extent should businesses and corporations only act in their self-interest? Or, in other words, the interest of shareholders? And what extent should they act in the interest of stakeholders, even if it means they need to take some sort of financial hit every now and then? I have a feeling this is one of those topics that will forever spur some differences of opinions. Or maybe not. Some new, perfect economic theory may come along and change the game for everyone. Who knows? Until then, I'll end on a bright note and remind everyone that while we may not be able to rework the economy to our own perfect scenario, we are able to influence it.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Comes to mind. If there is a business you feel represents all that is wrong with the current state of capitalism, try your best and purchase elsewhere. Same goes for places that you feel represent how business should operate. Try your best to purchase their products over their competitor. Whether your purchasing power is in support or in protest, eventually, the businesses will react accordingly. This has been the Beginner's Guide to Capitalist Economic Theory, and I'm your host, Emmy Davis. This podcast is a subject entertainment production for Free Markets Destroy, a project of the Washington Policy Center. Free Markets Destroy celebrates the power of free markets to tackle humanity's most daunting challenges. The world isn't perfect, but it's getting better every day thanks to entrepreneurs who work tirelessly to deliver life-changing innovations. Washington Policy Center is a nonpartisan, nonprofit public policy research organization that publishes studies, sponsors events, and educates citizens on vital public policy issues. For more information on either, check out freemarketsdestroy.com or washingtonpolicy.org. As always, thanks for listening, and do your own research.